Hi guys, this is Mandy again, from Laughing Grackle Tarot. This is our get to know your reader, and I guess I'm going to start off with the reason why I consider myself considered a medium, an empath, and an intuitive. I have been doing tarot for 20 plus years, off and on, 15 in consecutive. I guess I'll start off with my upbringing. Whenever I was little, I always felt things around me. Like I knew whenever somebody walked into a room and walked out of a room, and I never had to see them. I grew up with a graveyard in my backyard. Literally. It was in between our yard and our neighbor's yard. And that always made it kind of fun. But I actually started seeing things whenever I was in middle school. There was a old folks home at that time that only had 2 floors to it, and a group of my friends and stuff, we all decided to go around the neighborhood. At that time it was safe to do so, and there was probably about 4 or 5 of us, something like that, and we stopped off, got some drinks, and said, hey, let's go grab a seat over there at the old folks home, and then we'll just go ahead and walk on home. Well, everybody was sitting like this way from me, and you could see the end of the building. Well, as everybody was sitting around talking and stuff, all of a sudden I noticed behind everybody there was a stick roughly about this big around, floating about a story up in the air, just up there. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it, and I'm just like, is anybody else seeing this? And they all kind of turned and looked, and by that time it had already gotten to the 2nd story, and then it went around the building. And of course, being middle schoolers, you know, we're just like all kind of looking at each other. Everybody got up and ran, and we got to the next street, and that before we even stopped, and we all kind of was standing in the middle of the street and going, okay, just so everybody knows, we saw that, right? And everybody was like, yeah, we saw that. And yeah, I have multiple stories like this. I believe where I got this from, this gift, was from my mom, mainly. Because as I was growing up, I had been telling her the stuff that I had going on. And she was like, no, you're not nuts. You know, I had the same thing growing up. And she actually was at a wake and was looking out the window, and there was like this little hill that whenever my mom looked out on the hill, she saw a guy standing in the pouring rain, and he was bone dry, and nobody else could see him. So she had that story to tell me. She also had another one that she had told me about. She had to take off from school because her mom had passed away. Well, all of a sudden, after school, her friend shows up at her house, and she's like, well, hey, there you are. And, and she's just like, my mom asked her, well, how did you know that I was home? And she said, because your mom told me. And she's like, what do you mean? And, well, as she told it, her friend had seen her mom on, walking with two grocery bags, and was sitting there and talking to her for about 10 to 15 minutes. And she's like, well, if you want to, go see Betty, she's at home. And, her friend told her that. And she's like, no, you didn't. And she's like, I'm telling you, I carried on a conversation with your mother, and she was the one that told me that you were here. Well, she sat there and she's like, well, why are you telling me that, she couldn't have done that? She's like, she's passed away this morning. This was in the afternoon. So, we have multiple stories on that. And then I personally have seen like a coworker who passed away in the morning, and me and my ex-husband actually saw her walking in the mall parking lot looking like she's heading home that afternoon. I have, let's see, where we did live, that there was quite a few times there was stuff that happened there. I have the doors that they had these really big metal locks. They were kind of like boxes that was built onto both sides of the door, and you actually had to turn the knob and hear it click and then pull it. Well, I was on the phone with my husband, and I had been watching TV on the couch. All of a sudden, the boys are at school. My brother-in-law and his wife was in their bedroom, and, well, I heard the boys' door click and open about 1 inch to 2 inches. I was still on the phone with my husband at the time. And it's like, the door just opened. And then, you know, as I said that, it shut back and I heard it click again. There was that one. Then I still giggle at this one, that I had been telling him about the stuff that had been going on at the house. And, well, he was coming home late one night, and I was on the couch. And the way that it was set up, you had to go from the kitchen through a glass door into the living room. And our couch was like this behind the door. Well, he had been sitting on the couch, and mind you, nothing's moving. All of a sudden, the door behind him starts going back and forth, back and forth. And I'm just sitting there, and I just get this shit-eating grin on my face, right? And I just kind of, you know, looking at him. And I guess he got tired of it, because he sat there, he goes, "What? What are you grinning about?" And I sit there and I go, and he turns around, and all of a sudden, you know, now mind you, the door had swung out, and it came back, and it stopped. And the look on his face was just priceless. You know, he's sitting there and he's looking at it. Gotta be a reason. He sits there, he jumps up, he starts going through the house looking for doors, windows, anything that could, you know, give him some kind of idea of why it happened. He didn't find it. And he just sat down on the couch and said, "There's this, I don't know what the reason is, but there's gotta be a reason." And he really is a very logical dude. But a lot of the stuff that happens around me has no logic to it. And trust me, I try. You know, I look to find reasons of why things are happening. You know, to kind of rule out everything. And that just took the cake for him. So, my youngest son, he considers himself a witch, a pagan in particular, and whenever he was little, him and his cousin were doing their thing in their room, and all of a sudden we hear this big crash, and we come in, and the clock that was the LED guitar clock had been just taken off and crashed on the floor. The TV also did this, but the TV was upright. It looked like somebody had literally just picked it up and set it on the floor. And this isn't one of the TVs that you have now. This is like ones that have like huge backs to them. So it was not an easy thing for that to be picked up. He also is in this realm as well. He feels them, he hears them, and every once in a while he'll see them. Whenever he was in middle school, he actually was telling me of people that he was seeing in school. And it was causing problems. But I also have friends that we did a lot of energy exchange. And we have a friend named Daryl, and he, whenever he found out that I was this way, he was like, somebody else that I could talk to. And you know, we would do it every time we got together. And there's been a couple of times where I have kind of freaked him out. You know, he would say, okay, you know, let's do this. And he would lay down on the ground, and he was sitting there and telling me to kind of just swipe his forehead with a feather. Well, all of a sudden I just sit there, it's like, okay, who's the blonde? And he sat there and he got that weird look on his face and said, she just literally just popped into my head whenever you said that. He's like, yeah, she's a friend of mine that I haven't seen in a long time, and you know, I just got to thinking about her, and that's whenever you said it. And we've had that, and here's one for you, and this was on my dad's side of the family. My grandma had been talking to my mom, and she's like, I'm going to show you something. Without turning this over, tell me who this is. She goes and she hands the picture to my mom, and she looks at it, and she's like, that's Missy, my sister, my older living sister. And she sat there, she goes, you better look at that again. And she sits there and she's looking at it. She's like, that's Missy. And she goes, turn it over. And whenever she did, it was one of her daughters that had passed away. But she looked identical to my sister. Another one is whenever I start, and this has been, you know, just a little bit prior to my mom passing away, that I was telling her, you know, yeah, I remember whenever there was a nursery in the back room. And she was like, what do you mean? And I start describing it. You know, the crib was here. You had yellow and white and maroon plaid drapes. The sticker on the side of the crib was facing this direction, and you had the changing table over here. And she sat there and she goes, no, you don't remember that. And I was like, yeah, I do. What do you mean? You know? And she's like, no, there's no way you can remember that. And I'm sitting there, it's like, why not? You know, why can't I remember that? She goes, because it wasn't your nursery. She said it was Donna's nursery, who was, okay, my living sister is 3 years older than me. Donna was before her. My Donna, my oldest sister, She only lived about maybe a month. She died of a overlarge heart. And that is some of the things that has just gone on with me. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut this short. And we'll talk again soon. Next Wednesday. Bye-bye.